Hey everyone. Following up on yesterday's top 10 list of best tanks and supporters, today we are going to look at the best STMRs for tanks and supports alike. And we will mainly focus thereby on the STMRs that tanks and supports provide, but it's not always tanks or supporters that provide the best ones, as you will see. In a few cases, that is, though. It's very minor cases, too. But let's get right into it. We're starting off with weapons. Spirit weapons first. Fair warning, each list may or may not have one time limited unit. I didn't want to leave them out at all, but I try to minimize the usage or display of time limited STMRs because, well, you can't get them anymore. But this list should be fairly obtainable, so let's start off with Melia. Melia's STMR 170 SPR staff with 15% HP and 50% true dual wield SPR, which is pretty sweet. It's very good, especially on herself, obviously. Next up, Freesia's STMR is also very good. As you can see, I'm not gonna read out the stats every single time because it gets cumbersome, but the main point here is she has 50% true single wield. That is the usual case with or without shield, so keep that in mind. It's pretty sweet nonetheless, and she also has 30% light resistance. Poppy's STMR, you probably saw this a couple of weeks ago when Poppy got released with King Behemoth. She has multiple elements, so fire, ice, lightning, water, earth, wind and light element, and her STMR also amplifies water, wind and light, physical and magical, by 10%. So for whenever you need, say, Ashura, for example. Ashura is actually a good example of this. When you're fighting Ashura, having Poppy's STMR is pretty handy because you can seal the boss's mechanics fairly easily with Poppy's STMR. Forka's STMR, you've seen me probably use this a lot of times on my FaZe. That's because I don't have any better weapon, and there wasn't, to be honest. As you can see, 166 SPR is the highest, second highest of this list. Melia wasn't released at the time. I used FaZe for most of the trials, so that is why I used Volka's STMR most of the time. It also has 30% more MP and 50% water resistance on top, which is why I used it multiple times on FaZe. But these days, if I ever get another copy of Melia and get her to EX plus 2, I'm probably gonna use Melia's STMR on FaZe, because it has a little bit more SPR. And of course we've got Warrior of Light's Lena's Judgment Staff 2, which has been used multiple times, especially in Dark Visions, mainly for the Spellgar. And combined with Ravenheart or the dual cast Materia, you can safely get rid of any imperils and whatnot on your team. And if you want to use it on a tank, you gain 163 SPR and 30% SPR on top of that without any restriction. Now let's check the only two good STMR weapons for defense users, because most of the other ones, such as Warrior of Light's TMR, they are actual TMRs. So when it comes to defense STMRs, we don't really have that many. One of them is Ray of Hope Larsar's sword at 101 defense, 20% HP, and what's really cool about this is that it enables dual wield on any unit. So this might not only be a good unit, a good weapon for tanks, but it might be if you actually have to dual wield with a unit to chain properly, or if you're doing some trial shenanigans where you have to dual wield with a unit for anything, say break gauges, and you want to dual wield for more break gauge damage. That might be a good one to do. And of course we have to have Near Vision Snow's STMR on this list, just because it has so high stats. And it's not like only one stat is high, no. Both the defense and the spirit stat are super high at 175, which is, phew, it's really strong. It's a superb STMR, but it's a fist, and not every tank can wear fists, which is kind of sad, but it is super, super good. Let's move right on to the head slot. Well, small note here, as you can see, we have 0 defense heads on this list. And the reason is fairly simple. The best defense heads, they are coming from trials or events, which is why we only have the spirit-based head slots over here. So first off, we've got Kimono Ayaka's STMR 94 spirit, which is pretty sweet, 20% MP, which doesn't really matter for tanks or supporters in particular. Both of them always have enough MP, but the 2 LB per crystals, LB crystals per turn, that is pretty good. And it allows you to fill up your LB gauge a little bit faster, and most tanks and especially supporters, they want to have their LB ready at their disposal, be it for emergencies, for debuff removal, what have you, pretty much depending on the healer or tank. Warrior of Light Krilli's STMR is also pretty sweet for the all status ailment resistance. Now, you could use Hairpin of Purity, of course, which is a good substitute, but I feel like Warrior of Light Krilli's STMR really does a lot. It is also really good on DPS, as you can see, with the 60 magic. So for a supporter, this also has some decent applications for DPS mages. It's an all-around good STMR to have. And here we also see one of the rare exceptions of limited units, Krylas, on the list, just because it has 20% all element resistance. You've seen me use this STMR a few times already. I try to not use it for trial videos or Dark Visions videos because, well, it's time limited, but then on the other hand, I am constantly using Sora's STMR, who is also kind of time limited. So yeah, but the more time limited stuff I use, the less you guys can replicate my strats, so I try to keep it to a minimum. Next up, FaZe's STMR. I mean, highest SPR head in the game, if I'm not entirely mistaken, at 102 SPR, 50% water resistance, 30% HP on top, and Guts. Now, if you don't know what Guts is, it allows you to survive attack that would otherwise kill the unit. And that makes the head super strong. And it's not only best in slot on FaZe, but pretty much on every DPS, spirit DPS, or even healer / supporter. Eurasia's Hairpin or Eurasia's STMR is also really good. It has a heal attached to it, but the 30% HP is also nice for fixed damage attacks, for example. And, well, 95 SPR base, which is pretty good. It's the second highest one after FaZe. Let's move on to the chest slots. We've got 2 slides over here because there are quite a few good, very, very good chest pieces. So this is in no particular order, by the way. Don't think that the first one is the best one. It's no particular order. It's just whatever I felt like, to be honest. So first up is Lila's STMR, 1.5k HP flatline. That is pretty good. That is really good. And what I also like about this is that this chest piece adds 1 stack of Mirage at the start of the battle. Easens up the burden on the tank a little bit, but we've got 2 other STMRs on this list. They are both on the next page that are really strong, and they do something similar but better. Elephant's Dress is also pretty sweet for that LB fill. That is the main reason why it's on this list, to be honest. I feel like the LB fill rate is quite strong. Next to its decent stats and the 30% HP, but the LB fill, that's the real kicker here. Lucas STMR, again, one of the rare cases where I am including the STMR. 102 spirit is high, 70 defense while we're at it is also pretty strong, but the 30% resistances to fire, lightning, and dark, that is really cool, especially for resistance Tetris in trials or Dark Visions. But we usually don't use tanks or spirit-based DPSers other than Melia for Dark Visions as of now. Gebranth STMR, obviously super strong, 115 defense, that is very good, it's the highest one in game. Only Wilhelm's STMR comes close, but we'll get to that in a second. Gebranth's STMR also provides 30% HP, 500 base HP on top. So it's pretty strong, it's best on himself obviously, but still, nonetheless, for every physical tank it is really good, really good. You want that. Wilhelm's STMR, I finally got it on the global server too. I can't believe that I finally got around to having it, and I'm probably gonna use it constantly from now on. Well, the 2 trials that we're getting. But yeah, Wilhelm's STMR 110 defense and spirit alike, and 20% HP on top of it. Really all around good STMR. Alberic, I know, time-limited unit and all. I included him because he's a special case somewhat, as he also gives 20% attack and defense and 10% HP with some decent stats, but as you can see the stats aren't all that high. He's got 1000 HP, but compared to Renora, who's next on the list, Renora, I feel like he does it better, or she does it better. Renora's STMR 1700 HP, 50 SPR defense, 3 LB crystals per turn, which is good, which is really good, I like that. And 10% Machina damage reduction, physical and magical alike, which is very, very good. Now sadly I only have one Renora, so I'm very, very far off from his STMR. And lastly we've got Hollowed Ages, Charlotte's STMR. Another super strong option because of the 30% general mitigation, which is undispellable and infinite turn duration. Most of the times though, I just use it in the shift or base form, whichever I'm not using, just to apply the mitigation buff, so I do have a little bit more time to do other things before I get to the general mitigation, such as personal mitigation, magic mitigation, applying cover, resistances, etc, etc. But still, nonetheless, very, very nice to have and very useful. So let's move on to the accessory slots. For the accessory slots, we also have 2 pages or 2 slides. And Rem, she's not really a supporter, like I said at the beginning of the video, she's more a DPS, and I still feel like this Super Tristmaster should make the list just because it has 40% SPR on top of it. And while the heal is minor these days, it was kind of a big deal back in the day when tanks or DPS had far lower HP pools than they do have these days. But yeah, the 40% SPR, especially for SPR based DPSers such as Shuyu, it's pretty good, but as you can see, next up on the list is Aeriths, that is the 5-star Aerith, by the way. STMR 60 base SPR, 60% SPR on top of it without any restriction, 50% dark resistance, 5% MP refresh every turn. It's just a superior version, but Rem's STMR is still pretty good, especially when you have a DPSer and don't have anything else, to be honest. Chocobo Fina's STMR is one of the cases where I'd love to have it, but I don't want to spend an STMR Moogle on it. I'm just hoping to get 2 more copies of her sometime. But yeah, 45 of all stats, so attack, defense, magic and spirit. 5% MP per turn, 3 LB crystals per turn, which I really like. As you can see, I'm a huge fan of LB crystals per turn because this is a very slot efficient STMR, and it provides guts, meaning the user or the wearer survives an attack that would otherwise kill him or her, or it. We do have a few its on our unit list. Emperor Shira is the next one on the list. Her STMR really strong, 40% HP on top of 30% spirit or defense, because you get the spirit if you're wearing a light shield and the defense if you're wearing a heavy shield, respectively. It's a super strong STMR. I would love to have it, but I think I only have one Emperor Shira. So yeah, it's gonna take me a while to get per STMR, but it's really strong, and if you have it, you probably are using it quite a lot of times on your tanks. No matter whether it's a physical or magical tank, that is. Next up on the list is Awakened Rain's STMR. Pretty much same baseline as with Emperor She-Ra, but the stats are lower, so all stats, attack, defense, magic, and spirit are increased by 30. But the kicker here is 30% all element resistance, which I really like. It's a great STMR to have for elemental Tetris fights or Dark Visions. You've seen me use this in Dark Visions fairly often, where I want hit 30% all element resistance before we got the Barga resistance buffs from 70 up to, I believe, 80 now. So this was heavily used, and I'm probably still going to use this STMR quite a lot of times in the upcoming trials or Dark Visions regardless. Let's continue with the Lily Set's STMR. High stats, especially defense is pretty sweet, but attack and magic are also equally as high. Provides 5% MP per turn, 2 LB crystals per turn, and the best thing about it, all ailment resistance, which is huge, especially for units that don't really have that many ailment resistances. Comes in really handy because it also has 53 attack or magic, whichever you need. Quite good, really good. And lastly, we've got White Mage Rosa's STMR. You've seen me use this a lot of times, and most of the times when I'm using it, it's for LB fill. One unit that comes to mind is last gen, for example. I'm constantly using this STMR on last gen in my Dark Visions clears in his base form for the 2 LB crystals per turn and the 100% LB fill rate. It's just really good, and you can easily cap out LB fill rate and LB crystals per turn with this, combined with the materia that we are going to talk about now. And because there's plenty of materia to talk about, and I didn't want to this would have been 5 more pages or slides with materials, with 5 materials per slide, so I thought, let's not do pictures here, and I will the STMRs that are in bold are the ones that I prefer the most, or I like the most, so to speak. So Beach Girls, that is Samafina and Lid's STMR. It is one of my favorites because it has it all pretty much. It has 50% defense and spirit, and 60% lightning, water, and light resistance, which is just superb. And well, it is only superb if you need one of the resistances, and it's good otherwise, or very good otherwise. Spirit of the Shinobi Yoshikiri's STMR is best in slot 4, I believe, Shuyu. Especially with the 880 SPR, it's really good, but the kicker here is the true double hand spirit. I forgot to mention spirit on that one, but it should be obvious that it is spirit, but I will add it through editing. One more time limited unit here, Guardian of Light Kairi, for the 70 dark resist, 70% spirit and attack, 7% MP fill, and especially the 7 LB crystals, which is, I feel like if I had her STMR, I would probably use it all the time, especially when you combine this with Lumina's STMR. You are already overcapping on LB crystals per turn, which is kind of funny. But yeah, it's a superb STMR to have. If you got it, congrats to you. All of us who didn't get it, we have to hope that the Kingdom Hearts banner returns sometime. Daughter of Destiny Van Niels, or Airbus Boon, is next up. I included this mostly for the Guts passive that it has. So again, Guts, you survive an attack that would otherwise kill you. But it also has 60% SPR on top of things, with 50% stop resistance. Well, the stop resistance, I think, is kind of because what good is 50%? Half of the time it works, half the other time it doesn't. So could be 0 from my point of view. Wouldn't matter at all. But anyway, it's still good for the Guts passive, and that's why it made this list. Original Arrival Marie STMR. all element resistance 30%. You've seen me use this plenty of times because of the all element resistance. It's really good to have, and that's why it's in bold, because I like it. It's one of the best STMRs for supporters. DPSs too, if you want elemental Tetris or need. Determined to defeat the Empire. That is a thoughtful system. Maria's STMR. 40% defense and spirit, so a true tanking materia or supporter materia with almost all ailment resistances. So we've got poison, blind, sleep, silence, paralyze, confusion, disease, and stone resistance. 100% obviously, while also filling LB fill rate by 200%. And the 200% LB fill rate, it's huge. And the next best thing is Brain Teaser from Minur, correct? Which is more a DPS item, but 200% LB fill rate. It's pretty sweet, especially if you're looking for a quick LB fill, say on turn 2, but cannot afford to use too many other STMRs, Lumina stuff, for example, because it's on someone else. This is a very good chance to roll the dice on the LB crystals. Luca's Valentine recipe, Sweet Luca, obviously also makes the list here. 40% HP and the SPR, 60% water, wind, light resistant. It's pretty good. And just as good is Judge's Oath, Zarga buffs, STMR at 40% HP and defense, and Spirit, 20% all element resistance. You've probably seen me use this quite a lot of times. It's good. It's really good. And as you can see, the list isn't that short, right? We've got Unquestionable Loyalty from Bash, 50% HP, so your tanks are getting beefy with this guy, this STMR. It also has 30% SPR, and if you really wanna live through all the counters, 50 MP refresh on counter. But yeah, counters on tanks, we've had our fair share with Sacred Shield Charlotte and Paladin Cecil. Oh boy, did they take long. And Gladio also takes an eternity with his counter attacks, and Gladio's STMR Shield of the Chosen is next on the list too. So he too does give you 50% HP, 30% defense, and the passive of his STMR is 100% defense increase when below 80% HP. Cool Beauty, Summer Falcon Citra STMR is next. It also provides 50% HP and Ampere-like 60% ice, water, and dark resistance, which I like. Again, Element Tetris, these STMRs are very welcome for this. And one of the kings of Elemental Tetris is in the Call of the Epsilon Stars, STMR Exceptional Ingenuity, 30% all element resistance, Paralyze and Confusion resistance, as well as 30% MP, but who cares about MP really, unless you're doing the Parameta quest. But it's still, I bolded it because it's one of the best STMRs for Element Tetris and resistance fights, or element resistance fights. Winged Heart though, Renoa's Final Fantasy VIII Renoa STMR is super cool, and it's really good. It has multiple resistances: fire, ice, lightning, and wind at 60%. 50% charm resistance. I would have liked 100%. Same reasoning as before, 50%, half of the time it works, the other half it doesn't. But it has 100% resistance to poison, blind, sleep, silence, paralyze, confusion, disease, and stone. And that is why it's on this list, and it's in bold, because it's really good. Easy as that. So yeah, I hope you liked this list, found it helpful, made your decision a little bit easier on what to get. And yeah, that sums up our Sunday video. We'll see what I tackle next week. I haven't decided yet. I do have a few more ideas. But yeah, that's about it. And I'll be still trying not to procrastinate on farming Lapis on the JP server to pull on Celeste. So let's hope I can put this video out by tomorrow on Monday. But for now, let's get some rest, enjoy the rest of the weekend, and we'll see each other hopefully tomorrow for my sellers pull video. Until then, bye bye.